thank you everyone for joining us today. This is the Industry Day session for SIOP Phase 2 lease solicitation. As some of you already know, we've had a solicitation out there via Phase 1 for a little bit, which closed end of February. Phase 2 has been made available as of pretty recently. And so we wanted to do this Industry Day session today to talk about this solicitation, talk about why this solicitation is out there, walk through the document itself and some key criteria, and then also, and I think most importantly, just make time available for those of you that are interested in participating to ask questions and allow us to provide some clarifications. This meeting is being recorded and transcribed. We did receive a question earlier about making the recording available, which we will review and try to make that available. The main purpose of this being recorded and transcribed is for any questions we're not able to answer today, allow us to review and circle back. For all questions and clarifications submitted to us, either email or in the meeting today, we are putting out amendments to the solicitation that is active on sam.gov. And those amendments, we will post questions and our answers to them. We will not make anybody's information available as to who asked the question. But just for those participating, we're going to continue doing that just so all the information is out there. So going ahead and getting started, my name is Zach Schuhard. I'm a realty specialist with the NAFAC real estate division here in Honolulu, Hawaii.
And I'm Brandy Talixon. I will be the real estate contracting officer for this lease, and I'm the director here at NAFAC PAC.
Okay. Is it on the next slide?
Yep.
Okay. Okay. So just to kind of talk about what this is and why we're doing this, and so the Navy is going through a long-term program right now called SIOP, which stands for Shipyard Infrastructure Optimization Plan. And so it's a pretty big initiative by the Navy at our 4 major shipyards, where we're essentially doing large modernization and expansion projects to our existing facilities. They're all very different. And the SIOP project at Puget Sound Naval Shipyard, as we're working through this, has required just some temporary space for some of the tenants that we have at the shipyard. And so this leasing solicitation, this opportunity to lease with the Navy, has been made available to offer opportunities to lease with us and allow us to relocate temporarily some of the tenants at the shipyard, so that way this larger SIOP project can take place. So it's a big initiative for the Navy, and again, we're very thankful for everyone that has been participating thus far in the solicitation for this leasing opportunity this year. We hope there are new folks online today joining us for this Industry Day. And if we could, we can go to the next slide. So we kind of talked about this, and so again, this solicitation has been done in 2 phases. Phase 1 was available for a brief period of time, for about 2 weeks, to help us assess, what is available in the area. There is a delineated area that is a requirement for us. That is part of the solicitation. It's outlined in Attachment B with a map to help support the area that we're looking to find lease space in. And so Phase 2, what we're in right now, is really the formal solicitation. And so it's available on sam.gov. If you don't have a link to that or information to that, please follow up with us. Let us know. We want to make sure that you're on our distribution list and you received or can view the SFO. We're standing by and available as questions or clarifications come up in relation to the phase 2 solicitation. And outside of emailing, if anybody looking at the SFO ever wants to touch base and have a phone call, we will accommodate that as well. We want to make sure that this solicitation is an open and competitive opportunity for everybody to review and understand the solicitation, the requirements, how they can look at properties that they have or proposals that they could put together, and make this work for this solicitation opportunity. Okay, so this is just to give a little bit of context about us and who we are. And so NAVFAC stands for Naval Facilities Engineering Systems Command. And so we're a command within the Department of the Navy that's responsible for facilities, requirements, and solutions. And so we are part of the real estate division. And so our role essentially in a easy summary, where we essentially operate as a broker for the Navy for acquiring interests in real estate and real property. We are federal employees. We're not on commission. We're not getting anything out of this. This is our job here. And so we have the authority to solicit for opportunities to lease with the Navy, evaluate offers, speak on our requirements, and make award. We're the ones that are allowed to sign any leases that are awarded via this opportunity. So I am the real estate project manager for this solicitation. And again, Miss Brandy Talixon here, she is our real estate contracting officer for this project. Okay, so just to kind of begin, talk about our timeline. So phase 1 has come and gone. The solicitation for phase 2, it opened 24 February, and it's open for a period of 90 days. It closes on the 26th of May. If anybody has questions or what we're calling as pre-proposal inquiries or PPIs, we just ask that they be submitted ahead of time on May 2nd. We are using Hawaii Standard Time as the time zone in the solicitation. I know everything is there in Bremerton and Northwest and in a different time zone, but sorry, we're located in Honolulu, and so that's just our time zone. But they're not too far apart. And so offers are due on the 26th of May. The solicitation has instructions for how to submit offers. As offers are received, we're working to make award, notice of award, no later than August 30th. Award is not the same as execution, which we pretty much say is signing the contract. And so we hope to make award no later than 30 August to anybody selected. And our internal goal to execute is no later than 30 September. And just to provide some context, that timeline is really related to the US government's fiscal year. And so our fiscal year runs from 1 October to 30 September of every year. And so that 30 September is essentially our cutoff date. So, okay. So just transitioning into our requirements, it's a big list, but we've tried to add a lot of context and I think good information in the solicitation to outline for those that are interested in participating in this solicitation and submitting offers. We have 17 different space requirements that we're looking to provide a temporary lease solution for. We're putting this out there for a 10-year lease with no renewal options, and for spaces that are located within 40 miles of the Puget Sound shipyard. And so these requirements, they vary in size and type. And so the solicitation in section 1 of the solicitation outlines these different space requirements. They vary from like admin and training space to warehouse space, light industrial space, and then of course laydown space for storage. We can go forward. So the how to submit proposals for this is formalized and explained in the solicitation. And so how to offer is a section itself in section 2.1 of the solicitation. And so for everybody looking to submit offers, I really strongly encourage you to read through. I think sections 1 and 2 are very important. The entire solicitation is important, but section 2 outlines how to submit an offer, how to go about it. And so we understand submissions might be large in size. It's a large solicitation. There are various attachments. A lot of those attachments do need to be looked at, filled out, and included with your offer. And so given the large size of some of the offers that might come in, and that we operate on a government server, which has some limited capacities in itself, we have put instructions in the solicitation for how to transmit an offer to us electronically via a system called DoD Secure Access File Exchange, or DoD Safe. And so you don't have to really worry about how to understand that site. When you're ready to submit an offer, all we ask is that you initiate that request to me, Miss Barbara Buckhalter, and Miss Megan Schroeder at our respective emails there and in the solicitation. We will have that system, DoD Safe, submit an automated request to you where you can upload all of your documents safely and securely, and then we will receive them for a safe and secure download where our government server doesn't impact our ability to receive the proposal. For everyone's awareness, and for section 2.2C, as this puts it out there, for anybody that submits a proposal that does not comply with the submission format, it could be considered non-responsive and may be disqualified from consideration for us, and we don't have to respond to that. If a proposal comes in that is not conform to the requirements of the solicitation, it's not reviewable for us. So the solicitation does allow for alternative proposals at really anybody's discretion and their risk, but we cannot confirm that we will review or accept or acknowledge a proposal outside of the submission format of the solicitation. Okay. Okay, and so this just kind of continues, and the section 2.1, there's a few different sections that goes from part A to part E, and parts A and B are pretty important, and they really outline a lot of the key information that we're looking for, and we need to understand with your solicitation, with your offer, in order for us to do a proper review and assessment of your proposal. And so part A outlines a lot of these requirements here on this slide. We need basic information, including who are you, what is your interest in the property, do you have the right to lease it to us, confirmation that the space meets all the minimum specifications. And so again, there are 17 different requirements, and so proposals can come in really various ways. And so just making sure that whatever your proposal considers, that you outline and tell us what space requirements you are submitting your proposal for. And then there are some attachments here Attachment F is a very key attachment for us. That is essentially the proposal to lease space. It includes a table identified as Table 1 or Item 11 of Attachment A, and that will include your cost proposal. And so we have to understand, not just what the space you're offering is, all of the details that you are who you say you are, and that you have the right to lease such property to us. But we need to understand the costs included with your proposal to assess it formally. That Table 1, it doesn't just talk about rent, it also puts out there to outline any cost consideration for, we call them tenant improvements or build out costs. And so it is understood that some spaces might need a level of improvements or work to be performed to meet the requirements that we have outlined in the solicitation. And we understand that comes with a price. And so that Table 1 outlines how that price proposal for tenant improvements can be submitted either in a one-time lump sum, which we would pay out upon the completion of any improvements, or via an amortized schedule over the 10-year term. We can go forward. Okay, so Part B of Section 2.1 is also very important for us, and this talks about some technical factors here that we will need to assess your offer. Again, there are 17 different space requirements here. You do not have to submit a proposal for all 17. Anybody that is interested in this leasing opportunity, you can submit a proposal for one space requirement. You could submit multiple proposals for different space requirements. You could submit one proposal to co-locate different space requirements with each other, or various proposals with different combinations. Not all properties are the same. So depending on the type of property you have and how you think it lines up and could meet the space requirements that we're looking for, it's at your discretion how you'd like to submit a proposal. But we need to understand and have a clear description from you of like, okay, we're presenting a proposal for requirement A, B, and C, and this is how we're going to do it to meet the total space requirement that you're looking for, inclusive of tenant improvements. A key factor as well for this is a schedule. The time to deliver a complete and usable space is important for us. We essentially need space, temporary space to locate personnel now. And so we understand that not all space is currently available. And so as part of the proposal, with respect to any property being submitted for consideration, if there are any build-out requirements or tenant improvements necessary to provide a complete and usable space that meets our requirements outlined in the solicitation, we need a high-level schedule to be provided of, okay, this is what we have now, given this level of work, to be completed at these milestones. This is when we anticipate our offered property being ready for the U.S. government to occupy. And so that is important for us. Additionally, this section is very important to read and go through. We need sites that are up to code and compliant with what they need to be compliant with. We do have some security standards that we need to comply with, and we want to make sure that whatever you're proposing, visuals are very important for us to assess the property, and so interior, exterior photos, layouts of if there's an existing property, layouts of that property are very important and very useful for us. Any past performance that you can put out there outlining what you've done in the past or what you're currently doing that you think is relative to this project and would be a good example of how, we can see, all right, this type of work that you're doing right now shows you have an ability to meet the requirements that we're looking for via your offer. And then lastly, attachments G and H there. Attachment G, that provides our solicitation provisions. I think that's a good document to read, and you should read everything in this solicitation, but that's a good one to review. Attachment H, as we mentioned, it has to be up to code, and that form is an important attachment to review and would have to be filled out and supplied with your proposal. Okay, we can move forward. Okay, all right, so this is really important, and I just want to emphasize here, this is very important for everybody to review section 2.10 of the solicitation. This provides and outlines what our evaluation factors are for offers received. And so they go in order here of price, co-location, location, and delivery time of a complete and usable space. And so this solicitation, for everyone's awareness, price is factor 1. Factors 2 through 4 are considered technical factors. We look at price and technical as weighted equally. And via this solicitation, we are not awarding based on lowest price, but what we consider to provide the best value to the government. And so we're seeking the best proposals possible that can meet our space requirements with consideration to price and these technical factors outlined here. Price is inclusive of your annual rent that you're proposing for all 10 years of this lease, and any proposed costs for tenant improvements, be it a one-time lump sum or an amortized schedule over a period of years in the lease term to be paid off. Factor 2, co-location is important. So again, we've got 17 different space requirements. It's a lot of space we're looking for. Having an offer submitted that can accommodate multiple space requirements will be rated more favorably. It's in our interest to have spaces to have a reduced number of leases and spaces here to help us logistically. And so co-location is an important factor. I think co-location can be looked at as if there are 2 space requirements outlined in this solicitation, are they being proposed to be on the same property? If you're submitting a proposal that you essentially have two different properties and you're proposing that would really be looked at as 2 different proposals or 2 lease agreements. For different properties that could meet different space requirements. But if you have one property that can accommodate one or more of the space requirements identified in the solicitation, that's where we consider it to be co-located in your offer. Location is pretty self-explanatory, I think. Again, the solicitation outlines what our delineated area is. Spaces offered that are closer to the shipyard will be rated more favorably. And then delivery time of a complete and usable space. Again, in terms of seeking a definitive occupancy date of when does the Navy intend to occupy space, or when do we need that space to be available? We are looking for space to be made available as soon as possible. And so we understand again that not all space is ready. And may require some improvements, some alterations, and that should be included and called out in your proposal. But with that, we need a schedule to be provided. We have to assess, okay, if this offerer is saying that this proposed property will be available as of, just an example, December 1st, 2025, how will you provide that complete and usable space based on what you're proposing? And it needs to have a schedule outlining to us what all is needed to be done here. What will you do to essentially do what you say you're proposing in your offer and provide such space? Okay. Okay, so again, we're trying to be, I think, as communicative as possible in this solicitation. Leasing is I think, a unique type of contracting opportunity with the Navy. And so we want to make sure that for everybody interested in participating and putting in offers or just trying to get additional information, we are fully available. We are trying to answer all questions in a timely manner. We are happy to set up and schedule phone discussions to talk. I think the opportunity to speak is very helpful for both sides. We identify questions with another acronym, unfortunately, as PPIs, or pre-proposal inquiries. And that's because every question we receive, we have to interpret that as a pre-proposal inquiry, and we take note of the question, and we are putting these our answers to those questions out on sam.gov as amendments to the SFO to make sure that, again, anybody interested can see that information, help them look at what they're putting together in their proposal. This is a completely fair and open opportunity for anybody, and so no information is being held back. And again, PPIs are due on May 2nd. Okay. Okay. So we've really run through a lot of the solicitation and the key information we wanted to talk about today. Again, this meeting is being recorded and transcribed, and as we transition into just an open Q&A format, we will take note of questions asked during this industry day, and if we're able to provide an answer in this forum, we will put that into an amendment. We might have to follow up later. But after this day, we will provide a forthcoming amendment that provides all the questions and our answers to this via an amendment to the solicitation. We have, I think, a pretty comprehensive distribution list, and so for anybody that has reached out or expressed interest, for those that participated in phase 1, for anybody new that's reaching out and interested in participating in this phase 2, we are adding you to our distribution list automatically. And so as we get updates or with questions, clarifications to the solicitation, here and there is the chance for the solicitation to be amended. Maybe we had a typo. Maybe something, a small piece of information has changed, maybe through a question or clarification to us. We realized that the solicitation needed to be amended. And so we're communicating that in, I think, a very timely manner to everybody on our distribution list. And so we do ask that today, as we transition into this Q&A period of this industry day, that you be cognizant of any proprietary information. And for anybody that is interested in being part of our distribution list, that maybe you haven't been receiving information from us, or if you would like to reach out after the industry day session today with PPIs, please submit it to those emails there. That's our information, and we'll get back to you. Okay. So, are there any more slides, or are we?
That's it for slides. We do have a question in the chat. Do you want me to talk you through it?
Okay. So we're going to start off. There's already some questions in the chat, and so we're going to start off with those, and then we'll transition to just an open forum as folks have a question. I think the hand raise feature in MS Teams is pretty useful, and so if you could raise your hand, and we'll work our way to you. And so we'll start off with the question in the chat. So
the first question is, where are the build out requirements for B and C, tenant improvement requirements, B, C, D, and E?
Okay. So the solicitation outlines the type of space that we're looking for, the size, what it will be used for. The solicitation also talks about, just in general, the condition of that the facility has to be at or be brought up to. And so whatever the build out requirements are that are needed to provide that complete and usable space that based on your assessment and your research can meet our requirements, that's going to be specific to you. And so you have to outline in your proposal, and I think the schedule really helps put that into perspective as well. Hey, we as a landlord have this type of property. Maybe it could be used for admin or training space. Maybe it's warehouse space. Could be lay down or a combination of these type of spaces. But if you're interested in putting in an offer for one or multiple types of space requirements, it's really up to you as the participant here to assess, what do I have to do to my property that I could put together an offer in this proposal that could be looked at as meeting the minimum requirements of the solicitation and acceptable. And so we can't necessarily put all that out there on paper for you just because we're looking for this type of space, but where your property is your property. And so it's going to vary by offer what that build out, if any is required, will look like. That's a good question. Yeah, and then attachment A is, I think, very helpful. Attachment A is the room schedule to the solicitation that provides more context to the 17 space requirements that we're looking for. And so based on the solicitation, the attachments, and schedule, and attachment A, that room schedule, that's put out there to help make sense of what is the type of space we're looking for. Again, every property is going to be a little bit different, and so I think it allows for a lot of creativity for people to put together a proposal that could meet those space requirements. But the room schedule is available to assist as really a visual for what we're hoping to get for a space that could meet our requirements.
Excellent. So we do have a couple people with hands raised.
Okay.
So let's start with Dennis Funk. Did you want to go ahead and ask your question and unmute
Yes.
yourself?
Yes, thank you. Hi, I'm Dennis Funk with Olympic College. Thank you for this opportunity. I'm looking to get a clarification. Can you tell me which requirement, I think it's either A, B, C, or E, would include the apprenticeship space that we currently operate in?
I believe it's B or C. But Dennis, I wouldn't mind following up with you after the fact, just because I'm not privy to what your organization is currently supporting. I understand it's related to this list, but if it's okay with you, I'd like the opportunity to follow up with an email after doing some due diligence to make sure that I'm saying the right thing to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I can send you some communication on that. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could, and I appreciate that question. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dennis. Next we have Carlos Jara. Do you want to unmute yourself and ask your question? Carlos, are you there?
Yeah, so can you hear me now?
Yes.
Oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
My question is in reference to the, and I'm sure some of the other folks on this call might be considering this. We're here approaching the middle of March, and we have properties available now, and we'll have properties available as we get through the deadline of May. If we have a property that we submit on this point that would fit a need now, we're still marketing these properties. So do we, at that point, once that property is not available for this project, we just have to notify you guys after we've submitted it that this property is no longer available because it's been leased out to another party?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we understand the nature of the commercial environment here. Things move quickly, and you guys are out to lease space and fill that up. So for anybody participating in this solicitation, and it is outlined in the solicitation, we ask that your offer be put out there until award is made. And so if you submit a proposal, and then you turn around and lease the space to us while we're reviewing said proposal, and we don't know that it's not available anymore, I don't think it's beneficial for either side here, because for example, if you lease space right now and still put in a proposal, and maybe we make award to you, can you even lease that space to us? And so I don't see it. If you are interested in leasing your space, we are not here to stop you or prevent you. If you put in an offer and then turn around and lease it to someone else, that's your decision. It's your business. But we ask that you let us know and inform us if you do get into that situation where you've taken the time to submit an offer, but then as we go through again, we're looking to make a notice of award by August 30th. That's our target date. And we're looking to execute a lease no later than 30 September. And we want to move quicker than that, but it's just subject to, we might receive a lot of proposals as part of this solicitation. And so we'll just need some time here to make sure that we review everything. But if you put in a proposal, sir, and then like by August 30th, you turn around and leased that to somebody that's no longer available and you don't want to lease to us, we're really relying on you to tell that to us, that you're essentially removing yourself from the award process. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I just want to make sure that there is an expectation that, hey, we put this on the report as a proposed, lay down or whatever, and then sometime in May we get a lease on that space that's outside of this. It's to a private party or whatever that we have that we're expected to follow up, which we would. I would believe so. To let you know that hey, this offer is no longer available for this requirement.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right, we have a couple more questions in the chat that we'll address, and then I'll go back to hands that have been raised. This comes from Laura Fox. Is the intent to be able to terminate the lease with a 120-day notice anytime after year one of the lease?
So I understand everybody, it is important to take account, this is a 10-year lease we're asking for, a 10-year firm term lease. But it includes termination, a termination clause in there. And so we're putting out there, we need at least if we have to terminate the lease, should any be awarded and executed, we would provide 120 days notice after the first year. We as the U.S. government and the Navy, we have to have termination rights included in our leases. It's a matter of policy by the Secretary of the Navy. I would ask that everybody key in and review Attachment F, the proposal to lease space form. That is, I think, an informative form that touches on termination rights. And in item number 25 of that attachment, I think that helps talk about if we terminate early, that offers need to take into account any termination costs associated with what they proposed and what's agreed to. And so these proposals and different proposals can vary. Some proposals might require a lot more build out if they are awarded and accepted. Some proposals might require very little build out. But for those that might require more, we understand that kind of plays into how the project essentially is financed and put together. And so based on what your situation is, what property you're proposing, what tenant improvements you feel will need to be performed and taken into account as part of the cost in attachment F. You also need to assess what the cost to terminate might be for you. We understand that termination costs are a real factor here for certain situations. And that's just a matter of doing business in this industry. So I would also put out there for any folks assessing this lease, the term, the termination notice, and how that can play into things like financing. We encourage you to talk to your financial institution. Bring this to them, get their input. They might have experience with government leasing, which I think is unique in the world of commercial leasing, but it's not new. And a lot of financial institutions, they likely already have experience with this and could probably help weigh in with you and your team on what to consider and how that proposal and any financing included can take shape.
So we have another question in the chat tied to this. And this is from Douglas Cabell. I hope I pronounced that correctly. If the landlord spends X dollars on improvements and the Navy reimburses landlord with a balloon payment at improvement completion, then the Navy terminates prior to their lease expiration in 10 years, is Navy looking to be reimbursed for a portion of their balloon payment, amortized on what term they won't occupy?
That's a good question. If a proposal comes forward and the proposal includes any build-out costs, it's going to vary. If it's done in a one-time lump sum payment upon the completion of the improvements and in accordance with your schedule to deliver a complete and usable space, it depends on if the Navy does have to exercise its termination right, and we have agreed and awarded a lease including a one-time lump sum for payment of that build-out. If the build-out is not completed and we haven't paid for that yet, that's going to have to be assessed and looked at with respect to any termination costs. They might not all be identified up front in your proposal. Again, I think this could vary in a lot of different ways, and you're going to have to look at what you're putting forward. If we accept a facility that included build-out and we have paid for all of the build-out necessary for the lease to be acceptable and take occupancy, no, we would not. We've essentially accepted that service and we've paid for it. And so we wouldn't go back and ask that you reimburse us for us. It's going to, I think, vary by situation and the timing of it. And so we're here asking for offers for a lease of 10 years. And so that's the term we're looking for. That's what our requirement is approved and based off of. As a policy standpoint, we have to include a termination clause for us. And then in the event that we accept and award a lease where improvements are amortized, that is going to vary depending on the proposal submitted and what all comes together. If improvements are amortized over, say, a period of, I'll use 3 years as just an example. Say the improvements are still being worked through and it's year 2, and the Navy, we have received a formal request to exercise the termination rights of the lease. We would have to assess any termination costs for real costs already that the landlord has already taken on. And so we have to review that and go through that. And typically, we need supporting documentation and evidence of real costs. It's not a situation where a number can be thrown at us and we can agree. We have to assess the real costs that landlord has already taken on including invoices, invoices for contractors. It could be various real costs included. But you have to take some time and do some due diligence if we were in that type of situation to assess what are your real costs that you've already incurred, and then submit a request for payment of those real costs to be reimbursed by the Navy. I hope that helps answer your question. That can really vary in a lot of different scenarios here. If anybody has questions about that or wants to follow up with us with additional questions after this, we welcome it. We're very cognizant that this can play out in different scenarios, and we want to make sure that you're getting good information and we're answering the best we can here. At the end of the day, a lot of it and how that proposal and any costs associated with the termination, it really comes down to you and what you're proposing here with respect to the requirements of the solicitation.
Excellent. And it looks like Douglas Chuck gave you a thumbs up in the chat. So
Okay,
please go with that
thank you.
answer,
That's a great question. Thank you.
All right, Dale Sperling, you raised your hand. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask your question?
Sure. Dale Sperling. Couple of questions, actually. One has to do with the administration and teaching space, I guess it was. There are a number of employees that are shown on several of these spaces, and they range from 77 square feet per person to over 500 square feet per person. Is there something that I'm missing on that? That's on items A, B, C, D, and E. They range from 77 square feet per person to almost 500 square feet per person. And I'm just curious how that could be such a wide variation.
So the training spaces, they are a little bit unique in nature, and so the room schedules outline. Some of the rooms will be used. Again, the requirements coming in here for the spaces are coming from the shipyard, and so it's not. Some of the classroom and training spaces are not traditional classrooms. They need larger spaces for a traditional classroom, or they need larger spaces that they can come in and do some of their training work, might be mock-up work, that they can maybe bring in some of their tables and their equipment to work on. And so the room schedules help take that into account of these are the type of rooms and the minimum space needs for these rooms that the user would need. I do want to encourage review and creativity, and that is because, again, all properties are not the same. And maybe based on a current property or a thought process of how a property could include some improvements to meet some of the requirements. Maybe an alternative proposal could be put in that, hey, based on what you're looking at, my property or my offer, inclusive of any build outs, could meet this space requirement. If there are certain questions that come up as you start to put your proposal together and you're seeking more information with respect to the attachment A and the space needs in there, let us know. We'll look at that, and we have a team standing by to assist us with answering any questions with respect to the user's requirements. So Dale, does that help answer your question?
Yeah, okay. I was just concerned that maybe there was an error in some of those calculations. I understand the differences between uses for those various spaces and how that might affect the amount of square feet per person. I get that. Second question is, given the nature of preparing tenant improvements and doing drawings, getting the Navy to buy, once an award has been made, the Navy then has to review the drawings and actually sign off based on my reading of the SFO. The Navy has to approve the drawings and then you have to build it. We're talking about probably after you award, probably a year before it's occupiable, given those constraints. Is that something that you are seriously considering, that it might be that far out?
Yes.
So you understand it may be a year after the award before the space is actually available. I'm sort of skeptical that there's space out there right now that exactly fits your requirements without major tenant improvements, but maybe I'm wrong.
So the solicitation is, I think, structured to allow flexibility. If there are spaces out there and interested parties that feel, hey, we have property that is ready now, could meet one or a few of these requirements, or with minimal improvements could be made ready to meet the space that's in this solicitation. But with respect, as you know, attachment A, there's a lot in there. And depending on who's submitting a proposal, what they're interested in putting together and putting forward, if folks want to put together a proposal for a larger space that will require a longer lead time with respect to designs, construction, and completion for us to certify it being acceptable, that is understood. But I can't, that is why the solicitation does not have a specific date that we are seeking beneficial occupancy of a space. Back to the evaluation factors of the solicitation, I just strongly encourage you and everybody to look at those evaluation factors and help that guide your strategy. We have a requirement to identify and make award to lease space for all of the spaces that are in the solicitation. But we have to, that section of the solicitation outlines how we will evaluate offers. Price is a component, but it's also about co-location, location, and a delivery schedule. And so with respect to whatever type of property or proposal you're interested in submitting and anybody else, that's what you'll have to take into account and put together a proposal. No one proposal is perfect. We're interested in really anybody that is looking to participate and interested. We're interested in receiving your offers, but we are being transparent with how your offers will be evaluated.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, of course. Those are great questions. Thank you.
All right, so we have a couple more questions in the chat. This one is from Catherine Annen. And the question is, what is the Navy's current timeline to move back? Is it 10 years or could it be earlier?
Thank you for your question. I'm not able to answer that question specifically. Right now, we as the real estate contracting office and division for the U.S. Navy, we've received a requirement to solicit for and award a lease or leases for up to 10 years, inclusive of everything else that we've talked about here in this solicitation. And that is our current and immediate requirement. If there are needs beyond that timeline, that can play into this. But right now we are focused and working on this immediate requirement and solicitation at hand.
All right, another question here from Joanne Watts. Some of the warehouse requirements do not list a restroom requirement. Is it safe to assume that you will want to group those requirements with other buildings that have a restroom requirement?
So I'm trying to put the question in a context. So if you say like you have a warehouse, but maybe inclusive of some admin or training space, maybe it's a warehouse and some laydown space. That's what I'm thinking the question is geared towards. And yes. The room schedule does kind of outline like which requirements definitely need a restroom, and we ask that it's up to code. And again, that if there say like a warehouse type of space is proposed, I don't know off the top of my hand what the code requirements are for bathroom spaces. But I assume that there has to be some account taken into having a bathroom for the amount of personnel for that space or that are anticipated to be in that space. So I'll take note of that, and maybe we look at maybe trying to be more clear in the solicitation as to any minimum restroom requirements for the warehouse spaces. But I also feel the solicitation does talk about that between the main core document and attachment A. And then again, take into account it's, we're looking for spaces that meet our minimum needs, but it is a requirement across the board that all spaces proposed be up to code. And I just imagine that includes any restroom space. Over.
And she followed up with requirement I is what she's looking at. So I'm taking note of that. We can look at that.
Okay, thank you for specifying.
Thank you, Joanne. So Scott McDaniel, you have your hand raised. Can you unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. I hope you haven't already answered this question. My call dropped off for a few minutes. I was looking at the 45-day window to be under contract and moving forward with permits. And in the case where there's improvements that need to be made to the facility, we're worried with Kitsap County currently has a backlog of permits that can take quite a while. So I don't know, from the selection date or the notification date at the end of August to then actually putting pen to paper, if that 45 days, is that starting from the contractual date, or can you just describe what your vision is there?
Thank you. That is a great question, and I appreciate that being asked today. So just to put it into context here, we're seeking a proposal for a space that will meet our requirements. If you submit a proposal, it still has to be evaluated, and we're looking to make a notice of award by 30 August. And then execute a lease agreement by 30 September of any leases made. Nowhere in that timeline or within the solicitation do we require anybody to start pulling permits or doing any of that associated work. The costs associated with putting together a proposal are at the discretion of interested participants. But if if an award is made, if the lease is signed, I think that's really when that timeline starts of starting to do that work associated with permitting, design, build out. There's probably going to have to be a level of work and review done internally with respect to teams interested in putting in offers, and some offers could be larger and more complicated than others and require a higher level of review and deciding what all do we want to do here. Some properties might be ready. They might require very little permitting, but all things considered, that's really where that schedule is key here. And I think that's helpful for both sides. It should be helpful and I think performed by interested participants to put together really a high-level schedule of like, what all do we have to do? We want to propose this space for this type of requirement for the Navy in this solicitation. How are we going to do that? How will we accomplish that? With consideration that we're hoping to sign the lease no later than 30 September. But until a lease is signed, that doesn't call for people putting in offers or part of the review process for award to start work necessarily, to start pulling permits. I hope that helps give some context to your question and provides a good answer to think about.
Yeah, that helped a lot. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. That's a great question. If there's any other questions kind of related to that, for anybody, please feel free to follow up with us. We're happy to answer emails or set up even a short phone call to kind of talk that through. But that has come up a lot, so thank you.
So right now, I don't see any additional questions in the chat, and no one else has their hands raised. So I'd encourage you, if you do have a question, either put it in the chat or raise your hand, and we can go ahead and address. We still have another 50 minutes or so designated to this time, if you would like.
Yeah, we can wait a few minutes here. We're in no rush. We really wanted to do this industry day event just to have this opportunity to have discussion. The solicitation it's a large document. We understand not everybody may be familiar with a U.S. Navy solicitation for leases. I think every offerer is different. Every property is different, and so you have to kind of think about and consider. What do I have to take into account for putting in an offer? How could that play into certain dynamics I need to consider that are important to me? If there are no other questions today, again, please use the PPI process. There is an Excel form that folks can use, and submit as many questions as you want to us. Or otherwise reach out, and we're happy to have a short discussion to go through this. But I think opportunities like this today are really helpful to make sure that we're doing our due diligence here to provide as much information as we can. Thank you.
So it looks like we have a couple of people raising their hands. I'll start with Jill Seymour.
Okay.
Jill, do you want to unmute yourself?
Yeah. My question is how will the leases be paid? Will they be paid annually or will they be paid monthly?
Thank you for your question. That information is available in the solicitation. And so we put it out there that rent will be paid monthly and in advance. In arrears, I'm sorry, in arrears. Sorry, we have some agreements that
overseas we have authority to pay in advance, but
yeah, sorry about that. So rent would be paid monthly and in arrears. We're looking for the lease to take effect within 12 months of execution or of award. So,
Jill, did that sufficiently answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. All right, Anthony Ives, you also had your hand raised. What's your question?
Hi, this is just a quick question. We have ready-made space in one of our buildings, maybe 6 offices that can be used plus training space. But let's say we filled out the application with a proposed price per square. Is it at any time would PSNS come back to us and negotiate what that price should be, or are we put it on paper? If it's agreed upon, that would be the price.
Thank you. That's a good question. So the price is the price that you put in your offer. And so as we receive proposals, we will evaluate for anybody that submitted proposals and moves further along and is in kind of a competitive range. We may follow up and have some discussions, seek clarifications. There's a chance that we might go back and ask for a best and final offer with respect to any clarifications. But when if a lease is awarded and signed, the rent is clear. And so just to also help put this into context, so the tenants themselves will not have the authority to request changes for rent or price or anything to the facility. NAVFAC Real Estate, our office as the contracting officers, we would talk with the landlord if there ever needed to be changes or alterations or anything with consideration to the terms of the lease. But what you put in your proposal for the 10-year lease term, if awarded, that would be the rent for the lease.
And just to piggyback on that, Zach did indicate that we could get to a stage where we go back out and ask for best and final offers, and that would be an opportunity for those folks within that competitive range to adjust their price per square foot as they deem fit. However, the solicitation also outlines that we may award without discussions or negotiations if we get the right offer at our discretion.
Great. Just to follow up on that, it could be a 10-year lease, so I can make the assumption that maybe that's adjusted for inflation as the time goes by.
We fully encourage you to propose whatever rental rates that you're interested in, and if that includes different rates annually based on an escalation, absolutely put that into your proposal.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, excellent. So I'm going to go to a question in chat. And this is from Robert Strum, will the Navy tenant participate in the TI design to ensure their interests are satisfied?
So we have, I know it's just us here talking today, but we have a large team composed of various folks, including the users. And so there will be a high level of participation from all the necessary stakeholders on the Navy side and with respect to our users to make sure that if anything is awarded, that as we go through like a design review and completion of design, that their input is in there. It's not to add anything outside of the requirements that are in the solicitation, but just to make sure that they align with those requirements and that their input is heard.
All right, Jill, it looks like you raised your hand again. Jill Seymour, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. Are you going to be looking at like veteran-owned or women-owned or hub-zoned set-asides? Are you going to be looking at that and prioritizing any of those, or does it matter?
That's a good question. At this time, I don't believe so. If it's acceptable, we will note that down as a question and follow up with a clarification to that via an amendment to the SFO. But at this time, I believe the answer is no.
All right, that's all the chat questions and hands raised. Does anyone else have anything you want to ask, whether in the chat or by raising your hand? Oh, here we have Jason Nani.
Sorry, I hit the wrong button.
Okay. I was just wondering. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Well, it's 11:15. Again, we're really grateful for this opportunity today to have this industry day and for everybody that has come out and participated. We understand a virtual environment is a little bit different than being there in person. Again, apologies. We're located in Hawaii, but we'll hang around for a few minutes if anybody kind of wants to think or ask some more questions. And then at 11:25, if there are no other questions or clarifications, we'll go ahead and close the industry day for today. But again, we want to encourage anybody. We want everybody to participate that can and is interested. You know, we've really tried to structure a solicitation to encourage a high level of participation. I strongly advise everybody to go through the document. Sections 1 and 2 are very helpful. The entire solicitation is important. All sections, all attachments to read and take into consideration. We are fully available to answer any questions or clarifications after the industry day today. Reach out to us at your discretion. We may not have all the answers, but we have a full team behind us that we will get answers back in a timely manner. All questions received and responded to will be posted and made available in sam.gov as amendments for everybody to review and take into consideration as well. If anybody is ever interested in having a short phone discussion, we're happy to do that. Again, even if it's a one-on-one or a phone discussion with you and your team, we will take note of the questions received and include those in future amendments as well with our responses. So questions are due May 2nd. The solicitation will close May 26th. If anybody is in attendance today that has not been receiving emails from me and would like to be included on our distribution list, please reach out. Our information is right there. We'd love to make sure that you're included in distribution of any amendments and future updates we have. We're looking for as much participation as possible. And I really hope that today the information has been useful for everybody. I think a lot of the questions were really good. They were really good questions. And so I'm very grateful again for your time and participation. So, am I missing anything?
Brandon from Kitsap Credit Union. I just want to thank you guys. The transparency and the increased communication and the receptiveness is a lot better than the last time. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, appreciate that. We're reliant on anybody interested in participating to make this project a success. And so for everybody taking this solicitation, for serious consideration and want to participate, we want you to be successful and put in as good an offer as you can. So. Okay. Well, again, we'll hang out. We're gonna go on mute here, but we'll be here for until about 11:25. If there are any questions or anybody wants to talk some more or put a question in the chat, we're standing by. And again, thank you everybody. Thank you for your attendance and time today. It's very well appreciated.
Thank you, Zach.